when we think about this artificial, this means that somewhere, whatever that virus is that they're trying to fight, you're going to be injected with the weakened or a dead form of it, so that hopefully the goal is that you stimulate this immune system to create the cells, create the memory cells. And the goal, of course, is that you don't ever get sick even after you've been given the vaccination. You know, because like, you know how some people will talk about, oh, well, I've never had the flu, but I got the flu shot and got sicker that year than any time in my life. Okay? I believe that happens. Okay? I don't think that just because you got the injection that you're not going to get sick with it. Now, we can have an artificial acquired passive immunity. All right? Artificially, something was made. All right? You're going to be given that particular particle. Passive means that it's going to be short term. So this would be like getting injected with gamma globulin if you think you may have been exposed to a particular virus. All right? So this would be something that's only going to be short term. It's not going to be something that's long lasting. It doesn't stimulate the immune response, so therefore it's not going to create the memory cells. The natural acquired passive. With the natural acquired passive, this is what happens from mom to child. And it'll be very short term. I think about up to, oh shoot, I can't remember if it's like 3 weeks or 3 months. Might be 3 months, because, or something like that. Because you know, a lot of people don't believe in taking their child out into the public until after they're a certain age. In actuality, they have the immunity up until that certain age. Just saying, okay? So, you know, there's other things that, oh, I'm sorry, Isaiah.
I think it's been about 15 minutes.
Oh, already took care of it.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you. So, you know, there are other things that happen. One that really kind of scares me is snake bite. You know, like right now, with the way that, you know, the weather has been, I've been working out in my yard, you know, and this sort of thing. Well, I'm out there, I've got to get up leaves, I've got to get up twigs and branches and everything, and I'm always like this. Mainly because I attract snakes. Okay, I could tell y'all some really funny stories, but I'm just saying, okay? So, you know, I'm like this all the time, and then I have to check and make sure, because, you know, these little copperheads, man, they can camouflage really well, okay? And I'm like, you know, I don't particularly want to get bit by the snake because I know what happens to the stuff under the skin that's going on. Just saying. So, you know, sometimes we're going to see that we might have to get an antitoxin. So think about, for example, getting bit by, like, the snake, okay? Or maybe we get, I don't know, bit by something like a black widow spider or the brown recluse, you know, stuff like that, that's in our area.
Does that fall into the third one?
Well, right. This would be, it would probably be a little more long-term, but it's not going to be something that's lasting, doesn't have the lasting effects. Because we have stuff like the antitoxins, we have stuff like the anti-serums. These are going to be ways to help us kind of fight getting exposed to these pathogens. When we have exposure, and in some of the exposures that we can have an allergic reaction. Anybody in here allergic to anything? Like maybe the shellfish or strawberries, you know?
Poison ivy.
Huh?
Poison ivy.
What?
Poison ivy.
Yeah, okay.
Jalapenos.
Really?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What happened?
It comes right back up.
Oh.
It's bad. They said my stomach, it's something with my stomach. They can't.
It
It's
just
mostly
can't.
all peppers. But I like jalapenos. I don't like other peppers though.
Do you eat them and just
Oh, yeah.
say the heck with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes, these allergic reactions will do that. We just say the heck with it and eat it anyway. And allergies, we can actually develop over time. In other words, you can have something that you've said, like for example, you've eaten strawberries your entire life, and then you go to eat one, and next thing you know, you've blown up worse than a bumblebee, or whatever. And I'm thinking about a movie. That's why I said the bumblebee, because the bumblebees bit him in the movie. Anyway, okay. So sometimes we have these allergic reactions, and there has been something that has triggered the reaction. Some of the reactions that can happen with allergies, they can actually end up in death. And they will be more common than you might imagine when you get ready to get into your field and start your clinicals and this sort of thing. Because when we have the allergic reaction, basically we're going to have that little antigen. It's going to kind of mix up with some of those antibodies and that sort of thing, and we're going to have the response from the body, okay? The body is going to give a response to that allergen, all right? And the response sometimes can be severe. So they actually have allergic reactions typed out. We have type 1, type 2, 3, and 4. When we have the type 1, whatever you've been exposed to, there's an immediate reaction. Occurs within minutes. The symptoms can range in everything from hives to shock and death, okay? So these allergic reactions, if they occur in the clinical setting, you have to be ready for it ranging from something like the hives to death, so it can end up being pretty interesting.
Is that like when people carry EpiPens?
Yes.
Okay.
And so type 2, with type 2, this one within a couple of hours will begin to develop. This one, an antibody dependent cytotoxic reaction. What in the world does that mean? Well, an antigen, whatever it is causing the reaction, is going to bind to a specific cell. That's what it's telling us. So at this point, we have something that's very specific, and that's going to begin the phagocytosis and start that immune response. A good example, the reaction we get if we're transfused with incorrect blood. If we have that take place and the reaction begins to show up, okay, they need to make sure that they address it very quickly or that person's going to die. They got to try to thin that blood. They've got to, I don't know what all they do for people who have a transfusion reaction, to tell you the truth. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. Under type 3, this one is autoimmune. So at this point, we are in long-term problems. And I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of the commercials for medications now for some of these diseases that are autoimmune, like the Humira, okay? So what we're getting is, it's, pretty quick to develop, and the body is not recognizing the foreign substance. It's recognizing the own tissues as being the foreign substance, and it's going to attack the tissues of your body. Under type 4, this one usually is what's going to happen from repeated exposure. For example, when we look at this one, if we have, like I was saying, eaten strawberries our entire life, but then all of a sudden we get the allergy. It's the same thing for some people who start showing an allergic reaction to a medication. Maybe they've taken the medication repeatedly over their lifetime, then all of a sudden they'll start having the immune response because they're now allergic to that medication. And what it'll do, do you guys remember inflammation? Okay, that process of inflammation. Usually, if you get this particular response, it's going to take a couple of days for it to show up, but it's going to start showing up in like an inflammation response. But once again, it could come to a point where it's going to have the issues that could lead to death. This is sort of what happens with these cells when we have an allergic reaction. And whenever I look at this, did any of y'all see that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? Okay, and the little boy who, you know, after they got shrunk, they were down in the grass, and he was like, I think in the flower or whatever, and he had the great big huge piece of pollen, and he was like, oh, I'm too small to breathe it in, but then he sneezes, you know, and that's what I think about, okay? I think about pollen, for example. So note, we'll have an interaction with a cell from that allergen. We'll have that cell's response putting out, for example, the antibodies. Note, they're using a certain type of immunoglobulin. Okay, do you remember that list that we had of the different IGs? Okay, now a mast cell. Do you happen to remember us mentioning a mast cell? I think I've only mentioned it a couple of times. These are found in like areas near the blood vessels. And mast cells, their job is to help initiate an immune reaction. When they initiate their immune reaction from the mast cell releases these allergy creators. All right, the creators of the allergic reaction. And what will happen is, one of the biggest that it releases is the histamine. And I'm sure you've all heard of that, right? Because right now, if we think about this being pollen, we're creating a whole bunch of this because of this process taking place. And what do we take to try to stop the response? An antihistamine, so that we can stop the itchy, watery eyes, the runny nose, the cough in the throat. And that's simply the allergic reaction. Mild, for the most part. Maureen?
Oh, no.
Oh, I thought, sorry, Amanda. Sorry. Look, don't, I'm just like.
Ask a question, I don't have.
Yeah. Now, something else that can happen with our immune system, transplants. It used to be that when transplants took place, that they didn't have a lot of the knowledge that we have now, and the people's bodies rejected the transplants. Well, now we do so much to type and cross, okay, so that when a person receives an organ or tissues or whatever the case might be, that they don't reject, that the body doesn't reject it. Something else that happens, the people have to usually for the rest of their life take some type of drug that suppresses their immune system. Not a whole bunch, but it does suppress their immune system in the hopes that the body doesn't reject the organ. Because if you think about it, lots of people out there need organs. They're not just rolling around all over the place, okay? So if they're used, we want to make sure that they get used and they kind of stay that way. They kind of stay in the person. Stuff that we can transport. Cornea, kidney, liver, pancreas, heart, bone marrow, skin, bones, lungs. Probably that list is even longer, okay, of stuff that we can transplant. When we have a transplant take place, the body is going to think that the donors, whatever it might be, and it is foreign. And the body wants to reject it. So what we have to do is we have gotten very specific now with transplants. When people go in now, they want to be a donor. Let's say you want to put your name on the donor list, all right? They go in for, they have to give the blood, they have to have other testing that's done now, because we have gotten so, I guess, advanced with donations that we can actually work it down to, do you guys remember those MHC complexes that get formed when we have the allergen, the hapten, and the molecule, okay? That we've actually been able to type it down to that. And see, the better that you can match that donation to the recipient, the less chance and the less medication you're going to have to keep them on. Okay? The less you're going to have to suppress their immune system. So, when we begin to look at this, we do have, drugs that will help, okay? And usually they say the best thing you can do is have a transplant from a family member. So the way that we carry out transplants can be an isograft, autograft, allograft, or xenograft. If it is an isograft, probably the best match is from an identical twin. Because identical twins, well, pretty much iso means the same. Is that correct? So at this point, if it's identical twins, they're usually the same. DNA is the same and everything. So that's one of the best ways. Self-transplant. Like, for example, if you have a burn on one part of the body and they transplant tissue from another, okay, that's probably going to be successful. An allograft. Think about maybe the parent, the sister, the aunt, the uncle, whatever the case might be, giving you a kidney. Okay? Chances are, when someone needs a donation such as that, such as a kidney, because you can live with one kidney just fine. Trust me on that.
My father-in-law's had his out since like 92, and he's 88.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to the urinary system, when I say it's okay to live with one kidney, it's okay to live with one kidney, definitely. Now, what about this last one from a different species? Have you ever known someone who had to have a heart valve transplant? Did they choose the pig valve or the artificial?
She chose the big valve.
The pig. Pigs are very close to us.
Would they
And
have
match
to like cross type the pig and everything like that? No.
No, and actually, we now do these farm animals, not F-A-R-M, but P-H-A-R-M, okay? Where we are genetically engineering these animals for human hearts, human kidneys, human blood, all this sort of stuff. I know. It's amazing. Yep.
So what would it be called if someone had like artificial skin? Would it be xeno?
Artificial,
Would it just be
I
artificial?
think it's just artificial.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen that in use?
Yeah, my friend burned his arm severely bad, and they put that mesh on his arm.
It is so cool.
Yeah, he can move his arm. They said he was never going to be able to bend it because it was stuck like that.
Yeah.
'Cause it was burnt in that crease. But they put that mesh on it now. He can do whatever.
Well, I just think it's amazing what they can do now. When we talk about the immune system, one of the biggest is our autoimmune problems.